Good morning, dear participants of Georgia Youth Business Cup 2019. Minividas here, and it's a pleasure to be with you here once again. So, it's the beginning of new work week. Definitely a lot of things are going on right now in the game, I see, because the ratings are definitely showing us quite interesting views, and there's a big news happening. So, we will go there just in a bit. Just to say that definitely the registration is still open, so if someone still is willing to join us, they still can do it today, because there's still 5 days left before the first stage of the cup is over. So, well, they do have a chance maybe to get into those top 30 and then to participate in the final stage of Georgia Youth Business Cup 2019 in Tbilisi on 30th of September. Now, as it was a question yesterday regarding the second stage, I will detailize that later on, closer to the end of the first stage, and will provide you necessary information for you to know. Just so don't worry about it. Right now, what you should be focusing on to be in the top 30 of the participants, to those who will be going to Tbilisi. All right. So, without further ado, let's jump to the rating. There we are in the LMS. Once again, a reminder, all the live streams that you do see, they are here. They will be placed later on as videos. So these are here, so you can find them later on and access them. In case you missed the live stream or there's something you want to review. And when we go into the company view, right into the simulation, and let's check out the ratings. So here we are, we see that there is one big leader, well actually two pretty noticeable leaders. One is Imartket and also Sirinoza Incorporated. So these are quite noticeable, especially if we look at their performance indicator. And the reason they got these pretty good marks, we'll see, because they have, well, Imartket, I'm sorry, if I pronounced that wrong. So the leader at the moment has the highest cumulative profit, and we can see that per last turn they generated 89 million just by last week, and their revenue is quite impressive. So we'll jump later on to see how did they manage that. But also we can see that there are also some things happening with Sirinos Incorporated, because we see their asset values growing and exceeding even the first place leader at the moment. So I'm guessing a lot of purchases and investments. And we can see that overall cumulative profit is looking good. Also, Cholokova is Mloshokava, I'm sorry. Cholokava. Oh, okay. Sorry once again. Got it in the third try. Got it on the third try finally. Okay, so we see that these guys are still in top 5, and we see their asset value is growing also quite dramatically. So I'm guessing they will get firing their guns pretty fast, pretty soon. And also we can see that GBT Incorporated is also here with pretty decent revenues and profits. So let's do this straight from the beginning, just to understand how the leaders look like and what we could learn from them. So interestingly enough, here we are with the same country where they started. Interestingly enough, I would, probably first recommend to try and go into other countries as well, because I see that they have a very well applied systemic approach, because we can see that they already have 4 stores in different cities of Spain. And also we can see that they have a very interesting product lineup here. So there is a very clear focus on not exactly just clothing, but also some accessories and shoes, and in some cases they have some sports cars and something that could go well. So it's an interesting mix. I could also comment that it's easy to manage that kind of product mix, because the amount of goods is not that high. But if you want to know at what kind of price and quality combination they're using, I would suggest jumping into the analytics, into market analysis, and check out the cities they're doing business in. So this is a task for you if you want to know more, or if you want to understand how exactly they are doing this. So in order to find them, we can go into market analysis, opening this in a new tab, find specifically Spain. And for example, we could go and see the clothes and shops, for example, bags and briefcases. And all right, there are a lot of sellers. So how about we go to Las Palmas de Gran Canaria? No, we're going to, oh, why not there? So no, they're not here. 1 second. Ah, Mallorca. Right. There we go. So they're here not alone. There are other competitors as well, but you can see that, for example, they're selling the bags and briefcases, a pretty good quality, a pretty good price, in a trendy neighborhood, a very good size. I would say, really congratulations for a market, because this is a really good combo. This is a good marketing mix. I can tell you from the look. I'm guessing they have also pretty decent quality of service. So this is a good example how you should be working and trying to do business, because there are also competitors here, but they are jumping here and raising the quality of goods they're selling. So naturally, this is a good combination, unless of course someone will try to jump into trendy neighborhood as well. Just the question is here, maybe you should consider increasing the goods, the amount of goods you're buying in order to sell more, because you have good potential here, so why not? The overall market volume is not huge, so I'd also would recommend to go and try to find countries with cities that have pretty big market volume, considering that you have a pretty good consistency on your marketing mix and business strategy. Well, this is really good. And as we can see, the same thing goes for other goods as well. So this is a very good combination of goods that works for this company, and they're also trying to mix in some of the goods from together with the clothing from automobile industry. Now, what is important is that, like cars and motorcycles, this is nice. This is a good thing to have it here, but we have to also take in consideration the fact that consumption rate of let's say clothing is a lot, well, it's more intensive compared to motorcycles or cars. Sure, the fast-moving consumer goods like foods and drinks, their market volume is even bigger, right? They are being purchased every day, and they're being consumed every day. Clothes, not so much. Cars and motorcycles, well, you don't buy them every day, now do you? Right? So the same thing goes about the accessories to a certain extent, but still. And on the other side, it is important to remember that clothing, compared to food, for example, has a lot higher selling price, which also means that the margin is noticeably higher. So when you choose your goods, the things you want to sell, you have to take that thing into consideration as well. But once again, I can see that, let's say, this is a good size of the store, so don't worry. I would even recommend to go a bit higher. Check the prices. If the rent is 10 or 20,000, it's not a big deal. I think that is quite achievable, given that you should have enough cash, well, unless you manage to spend it before. So I think that's pretty much clear what's going on here. We have a very good network of retail stores. It looks very nice, very neat, very clean, really good. So I'm really interested to see the further development of this business line. Let's move on then, and as I mentioned, try to go to analytics, market analysis, find the city, find the product, and well, do your homework when you're analyzing your competitor. All right, maybe you will learn something from them, or maybe you will have some insights that might help you as well. So Citinosa Incorporated, as mentioned, they have well, not the biggest, probably, well, that's me, so we can ignore this company. Here, they're definitely not worth looking at, but at the moment, I think, yes, Citinosa is actually the top leader in the asset value of the company. Now, the question is, will this company be able to utilize all those assets? So as we can see, there's a certain network already of auto repair shops going on, which is great. expanding them, also the size, and maybe also expanding to new cities is a great idea. Also, take into consideration the fact that you can open more than one or two business units of the same kind in the same city, which means you can have a limited amount of stores or auto repair shops in the same city. Correct. Just that you have to be aware that if you're selling, your proposition is identical in both stores, then these stores will be competing against each other as well. So it's not recommended. You have same stores or business units that provide their services in the same city. You have to differentiate. You have to change their proposals at some point, either lower quality or different specialization or different combination of goods, different quality and price. For example, you can then move one store to one district and the other store should go to the other district. Given the size of the market is pretty big, and you can see that you could use a couple of more stores to try and catch a bigger bite. All right, this looks interesting. So various combinations, but I would suggest, well, it's a good combo, interesting here, pretty decent size. So I'm guessing these guys will be moving on as well. I see some even meat, so maybe a restaurant will be opened up later on. That's an interesting movement as well. It's a good combination, differently from the current leader. It's a good combo because at the same time you can work with retail, and at the same time you can have auto repair shops generating some profit. The good thing is that auto repair shops require a little bit less time when you want to manage them. So it's a lot easier at this point to focus on the stores then, and then once again, but a good example also here that not overdoing it with the amount of goods you can have in the store, because the more goods you have here, the more time you will spend in order to, for administrative tasks, to make orders, cancel orders, look over the market, and so on and so forth. So if you have a good, clear idea what kind of goods you want to sell, try to keep up with it and do your proper homework when you're analyzing the data. So maybe missed something, or maybe as you watch the competitors, you will find something that would give you an idea. It's also a good thing. But once again, that is also just additional information. So try to maintain the strategy line that you already started, and try to develop it as much as possible and try to improve it in order to have better turnover, better revenue, and also profits. Okay, so Cholokava, right? I pronounced it correctly this time. Okay, so also a big concentration of business units, also slightly diversified compared to the first to Imartket. So these guys are a little bit better diversified as well, because they're going and trying out also auto repair shop and also restaurant. Concentrating in Madrid. Madrid is a good choice. It's a big city, but also I see that there's also an office in Indianapolis, and Chicago has a store, which is also a good choice. Trying various countries would be interesting as well. Once again, check out their average city salaries and wealth income when you're looking at them, analytics and microeconomics. All right? Try to gather more info. That will help you out. It definitely will be useful. So we can see that there are different kind of goods. We can see even some bijouterie, even some medical instruments. You might get some notices that you're not using or fully utilizing the sales space of the store. So you have to take in consideration that each new category of goods you're selling, it's like a separate part of the store where you concentrate on a specific good, right? So at this point, I would consider recommending to you to try and actually increase the amount of goods that are under that specific category. Well, if you can, that is. And I think I see the biggest store so far, because we see 2,000 square meters. Oh, that's great. And we can see some fabric and also some clothes. So I'm guessing these are from these factories. Or not. But at this point, once again, if you want to see in more detail, and also they already have also 4 stores with addition of auto repair shop and a restaurant. Once again, if you got the hang of how the business unit works, try building it up in a different, more favorable conditions in a country where those conditions are more favorable for your success. Now, let us see. So at this point, this is also a good build-up. I could say that, yeah, these guys are slightly falling behind, but I think what is important in this situation is that if you want to have more revenue, in order to get more profit as well, because revenue and profit are quite closely tied together, if you have set up your margins properly and you're pretty much good with the pricing. So what you need to do to get more revenue is literally to sell more goods or provide more services. So in this case, that means you need to scale up. When you're scaling up, it might affect your marketing mix, overall combinations, well, in some cases slightly, in some cases a lot. But when you're increasing your, let's say, the scale of operations, you also have to be careful of your expenses, all right? You don't want to burn out all your cash, and in the end up with no you won't be able to cover your operating expenses, which would be very painful. And I think we already have a couple of participants that are roughly at that stage. All right, that's once again, this is a good combo. This is also a good combo, but even more together with auto repair shops, there's also a restaurant. These are quite similar, but just provide different services. So in this case, if you feel comfortable with them, I would recommend expanding them into the US market as well. All right, the fourth. Now let me see. Now what we have here is our GBT incorporated. So as we can see, once again, same Spain, not moving out of it, but I'll see that a lot of experimenting here. So I see a store, the same store, a restaurant, auto repair shop, and also a hairdressing salon. Once again, the hairdressing salon is a bit different compared to the, let's say, auto repair shop or restaurant, because they don't use any consumables. These are just, well, as it is, it's just a hairdressing salon. So as there is no, there are no specific consumables, they have a little bit less of a popularity, or let's say strategical advantage, compared to those business unit types that have certain consumables, so have more specializations. So but once again, if you think you can do a pretty decent amount, get a decent amount of turnover from these business units, go ahead, give it a try. But in this case, this also looks as a good setup, fully diversified. I would once again would recommend going into other countries as well. Open a new, simply once again, open a new office in a specific country you want to build up your business in. All right. Okay, as corporation, what do we have here? Ooh, 2 medical centers. That's an interesting turn of events. That's an interesting choice, and not that is bad. No, it's a good one. Just remember that differently from stores and other service providers, which use rent space, the medical industry business units, they require build-up. And you can't choose a different district, so which means where it's built, that's it. So there's less combinations when you form your marketing mix. On the other hand, it's also good business, and well, we'll see how it goes, but it's an interesting choice. Also, I can see there's also tea house in Bulgaria, in Sofia, also repair shop, and also movement towards LA. Well, that's a good choice. There's also a store and auto repair shop with some simple, some core repairs, I see. That's also an interesting setup. Also, please take into consideration to remember to manage your offices, because this is quite critical, because in this case, for example, in Spain, as I can see, the office already has been expanded, because naturally the more people you have here working in Spain, the more people you need in the office, right? So when you're building up your company like that, remember either to take notes or use the sorting features. It's the same thing I have right now. If you remember correctly, yesterday I still didn't have them. But because my company is growing, I have possibility to sort all the business units that I have, and it even gives me a hint how many, let's say, for example, factories I have, and the number will be indicating how many business units I have. And if I click, for example, on one specific business unit, it will sort it out automatically. Another possibility is to once again to sort them either by the types or by the region or by the specific status that you're well, that you have. We'll come back to the statuses a little bit later. Now, let's look at the fourth, which is sixth company, I'm sorry, Akaki's Holding. Looks interesting because, yeah, that looks interesting. That's a pretty good, well, compared to the interesting point is that what's my interest is generally, let's say, why I'm so interested in this company, because they generated 15 million of revenues and 12 million out of those 15 million were profit, which is a very good say ratio, impressive one. And let's see, it's France, they're in Lyon and Marseille, and we have, let's see, 1 and 2 stores only. So in this case, this is an interesting combo. I would strongly recommend growing your retail stores. We can see that there is some movement here of the goods. In some cases, they even sell about 1,000 baseball caps, so they have almost 8% of the market share, which is really good movement. Same thing goes about the gloves, so 9% of the market share, which is quite impressive. So in this case, I would recommend once again to jump in and try. Oh, I also can see the business boosters, which is great. So here's the thing: what we're gonna do. We will be going a little bit deeper tomorrow into the analysis of what is the market share, what are the top players. In this specific situation, I would suggest trying doing that by yourself, doing that homework, and see what you can learn from your competitors. But either way, I would say that this is an interesting combo. I see potential, especially in looking at the profit gain, which is really impressive. So I'm quite interested in how the whole thing will move on. Now, we could be going through all the top 30. Just because these guys, for example, here have minuses doesn't mean there is a very big issue, because, for example, if we look at the travel body, we see that they're generated a pretty decent profit just last turn, which means they're slowly covering their minus generated previously to that. Now, and in some cases, if you're generating certain profit, that means it could be a great thing. Give me 1 second, please. Now, as we can see, it's an interesting setup. I think that right now what is happening is that most of the participants are only gaining momentum. If we look, for example, at this company, well, just let's in case. We could also see a huge buildup here. So just because they have a loss of let's say 1.5 million or something, doesn't mean that they're making wrong decisions. They're just at the moment expanding. So I wouldn't see a problem here. On the contrary, I think this looks interesting because I see someone is actually focusing on production, quite obviously. So we'll see how that will work out. Yes, this is a first. This is a first to see so many factories right here. So I hope your strategy will work out. Just that I would recommend looking also into various other countries and looking not only into, let's say, Cuba, but also probably in US or those countries that have good buying power. Because if I remember correctly, Russia doesn't have the best buying power overall, where you could sell your production. But at this point, I think this is a very clear, more of a production-based strategy. We'll see, will that work? But also can see a pretty decent stores. So yeah, that looks interesting. That looks interesting, and that explains why these guys have, let's say, a negative profit at the moment, but they still have pretty decent revenue, which means their things, I mean, their business is working. So at the moment, they're in production stage, they're in, let's say, investment stage. So I hope everything works out properly, and they will cover their expenses and they will cover their losses over the next 4 to 5 days. All right. Okay, I see there are a lot of things going really smoothly, really well. It's interesting. If you have any specific questions, let me know. So far, most of the questions were about retail. We did cover them yesterday. But just in case, if you remember, yesterday I built also a sheep farm. So I will be showing you a little bit of a sheep farm management specific today. Now, if you have any specific questions, once again, let me know them. Either use the YouTube chat window or type them in the Facebook page of the event. Now, also please use English. I really don't, well, I'm sorry, but I don't speak Georgian. So I would be very thankful if I would receive the questions in English. All right, thank you. Now, so we did, if you have any specific questions or there are questions on right off the bat and you can't find them in previous records, then type them in. I will cover them tomorrow. So the main thing is that in sheep farm, so the buildup is done, yay, same as in the factory, but the difference here is that what we need for the whole thing to work, we need livestock. So we don't need any specific equipment. We require specific specialization and certain technology level, right? So livestock quantity at the moment, we can have 600. It's not necessary to have that much. And also what we need to do is buy the livestock. We can see that there's plenty of choices. Once again, be careful with these guys. It's a good thing to have high quality livestock, right? Sheep of high quality, right? Well-bred sheep, so to speak. But the problem is that if we go into livestock, what you will find information here about is that the higher the quality of the sheep, the higher has to be the quality, the minimum quality of the forage or the food for those little sheepies. So in this specific case, if I buy quality sheep of quality 81, their food requirement will be very, very high, and that is quite an issue. I'm not going to buy sheep right off the bat. What I'm going to do is actually look for the possible or available crops, and I see there's this guy here with very low price with pretty decent quality. So let's do it right that. Let's say like 5,000 order, and boom, there it is. We have an order. I should receive them tomorrow. When I will receive them, once again, our livestock and employees, they arrive right away. So let's buy them only when I will have the necessary forage, because I don't want them to literally starve and then get sick and die. All right, but that is very simple. So this is where we have we use livestock here we use this tab, specifically livestock, to buy. And livestock for sale is that if you have a specialization of your in your sheep farm that provides you an opportunity to also not only produce wool, for example, or meat, but also breed sheep. You can take part of this growth of your additional, let's say, of your existing overall livestock and sell part of it. So can you use here that you can select a certain amount and then move it to additional pinfolds which are meant for sales. Where there you keep your animals that you're willing to sell, and they will be put up for sale. So technically, in sales position, there are free products that you can get out of the farm. So it's wool, right? Well, we can cut sheep, and yeah, there we are. There's the wool. Also, there's meat, right? And definitely, then if you breed sheep, you can actually sell a certain surplus of sheep that are bred. So in this case, very similar to what you have seen before. Once again, distribution policy, pricing is important, certain volume, maximum volume of the order, it can also be placed here. And after you choose something, once again, don't forget to click on Save Changes. So in this case, and on production here as well, to track anything that happens here. So once again, before we order any livestock, in my case, I will wait for the forage crops to arrive, and then I will order the livestock that I want to have in this farm, and also hire people to take care of the sheep. So at some point, it's pretty similar to production. Not that difficult to handle if you matched the quality of the livestock as well as quality of forage crops. So, or forage overall, well, their food, right? So at this point, everything should be okay. I can check technologies as well. We can see that there is one specific technology, but I'm afraid I don't have the funds to buy this thing. That would be interesting, which means the output bonus as well as the maximum product quality is also quite impressive. So in this case, this is quite interesting, quite good to have this, especially if you're looking forward to develop your clothing production, because this will provide you the wool that you need in order to produce the cloth, right, the fabric, and then use the fabric for clothing. Once again, this is a possibility to develop more of your business in more vertical integrated way. Once again, it's really up to you which strategy you choose. But in this case, I would recommend to also think at this point, given the amount of time that we have, it's also a good choice. But once again, don't forget to take care of your retail networks as well as retail services as well. So retail trade and retail services is something that will help you generate a pretty decent amount of cash right away. And if you have a certain amount of that cash you want to invest into production, as we saw, there is one of the participants, at least one, that has a very clear purpose, or let's say goal, to develop production as well, that will also benefit and will make your business structure more stable, more self-sufficient. So once again, it's a question how we will develop. We will see how you will develop your business, and I will definitely be able to leave you some comments on the matter, and we'll see what kind of things the competitors will learn from you, if they will learn, and how well you'll be able to develop your company and how much profit you will gain. Thus, it's a pleasure once again to see such great results. Definitely looking very interesting. And hopefully, tomorrow we will also have even more high performers as this, and the competition will be growing even faster and even more. Once again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will try to answer them either directly in the Facebook or right here the other day, right here during the live stream. So, good luck, and I will see you tomorrow.